Okay, everybody. Good morning to you all on this very hot day. I'm assuming it's just as hot where you are as it is where I am. What we're going to go for, I've set this up as a Q&A session, so please do just shout, you put your hand up or put a message in the chat if you've got any questions as we go along. I'm just going to go through a little bit, just a quick reminder of what some of the regulatory changes are. But happy to take questions as I go through or at the end. Okay, so still people streaming in, but we'll get going. Hopefully everybody can see that. So the new regs changes from 2026. So the first one, which I'm just going to talk through, is in relation to what I've generally coined as child-related leave, trying to cover a few different things. So at the moment, well, prior to these regulatory changes, you had assumed pensionable pay, which covered the main aspects of maternity, paternity, and adoption leave, and that the definition of what's included in assumed pensionable pay has been extended, so it now includes unpaid additional maternity, shared paternity, and adoption leave. The methodology for calculating assumed pensionable pay is the same, and what you need to do with it is the same as before. So you need to replace any pay which was received during that period and replace it with APP. And the method of calculating that is, broadly speaking, is looking at the last 3 months of what the actual pay they would have been and then sort of multiplying it up. Slightly complicated. There's much more detail on our website about exactly how you do it. But the main thing which has changed is just that there's other categories of things which come into assumed pensionable pay. Assumed pensionable pay in itself hasn't changed. By the way, if anybody does put hands up, because I'm in presentation mode, I can't see it. So if somebody just gives me a shout if there is any questions, like Pella, maybe if you could do that. That's the first change. The second change is in relation to authorized unpaid leave. Importantly, this relates to ones where APP doesn't already cover that type of leave. So it's not to do with sickness, paternity leave, etc., because assumed pensionable pay is already covered. So this is for other reasons why somebody might have a period of unpaid leave. So this could be that you've got a member of staff who's already used up all of their annual leave and they want to take an additional day's leave or days leave for whatever reason. So that could be because they've got a sick child and if your HR policies doesn't allow that to have an additional paid period under emergency leave or something like that. It could be because they want to attend a wedding or a funeral or something else like that. For any period where it's under 15 calendar days, that counts towards their pensions, but contributions in this case, unlike for APP, that they are deducted, and it's deducted based off their notional pay. So this creates a bit of a difficulty in a way, because it means that this goes away from what your payroll system would normally just do, because it would normally deduct contributions based on what they were actually paid. Well, what you need to do is deduct it based on what they would have been paid, which may involve some manual intervention. In terms of how this actually needs to be reported to us, we need to be given what they would have been paid. So if in that particular month, if there was 2 days where they had unpaid authorized leave, then you need to give us, for that month's worth of pay, you need to give us what they would have been paid if they hadn't taken the authorized unpaid leave. I'm saying the point authorized at this point because if it's unauthorized, then they don't get that benefit. And then the other main change is the introduction of something which is which were called in quappers, which is when that period is a continuous period of over 15 days. One important point to note is if you know from the beginning if it's 20 days, you don't apply the previous provision for the first 15 days and then switch. It's just a quapper for everything. So this is a new way to buy back the lost pension. So in this particular case, needs to be driven by the member whether they choose that they want to buy back this option. Again, just like the last one, it's only applicable if they've been given the authorized unpaid leave. I should say leave, not leaver. Is unpaid leave for a period of more than 15 days. I wouldn't actually expect this would come up that often, given that this is if it doesn't apply to sickness and maternity and paternity. So I wouldn't expect this to be a frequent occurrence, but there is a provision basically there for it. And rather than taking out an APP, they can take out a quapper for this instead. Again, more information on our website. And in general on our website, if you go to the area under Employers Administration Guide, and then pensionable pay and calculating pay, 3 of the drop-down ones here. So when you click on them, more information will drop down, covers the 3 areas which I just referred to. So it's all in one area. I would point out that I'm aware this is complicated, and it was already complicated and it's become more complicated. Unfortunately, I'm just reporting back the provisions that the government's put in. So these aren't things that we have any control over locally. We're just reflecting what the government has changed the regulations to state. So yeah, fully appreciate there's some complications with it, but that is what the regulations require. Also note that you weren't given a lot of notice about these changes, but then unfortunately we weren't either. So whilst they were consulted on, so we knew that they could be coming in, the government only finalised them quite a short period of time before they came in. So they do apply to April. So to pick up on a couple of questions we had in advance, yeah, they do the first bit of it about the under 15 days. Yes, they do cover things like weddings or say a child being sick. It does cover stuff like that. They are backdated to April, so that's when they should apply from. So if you haven't been able to do it so far and you had some cases, yeah, they should be revisited. There's one other change that we're waiting for, because when the government brought in all of these changes, they brought it under the banner of called access and fairness, but they didn't bring in all of the changes they are going to in April. There's a few which are coming out later. There was one of them to do with the government wanted to know more about how many people have opted out of the scheme and why. So they want to introduce a new reporting requirement, but they haven't brought this in yet. They've indicated they're planning on bringing it in the autumn. I don't know more precisely than that. That's just what they said. But it would involve you reporting information to us on the opt-outs for us to be able to pass them on to the government, because we don't always know if somebody's opted out on starting. I think they also want any employees who opt out to fill in a sort of online questionnaire to say why they've opted out, so the government have better ideas about what is the barrier to it. I think the context of this is that they just want as many eligible staff to be in the pension scheme as possible, so they want to know how many people are not in and the reasons why. Some of the other changes with the similarly named access and protection was that this only relates to some employers, because this is only councillors of district or the county council, but they brought in a provision for them to join. I won't linger on this too much because I know it's not relevant to most of the employers in there, but just for information really. They brought in allowed councillors and mayors, at the point in time that we have a mayor covering the Gloucestershire area, they'd be eligible to join the scheme. There's some other changes were expected at some point, but the government hasn't actually responded to its own consultation yet, so we don't know quite when these are going to happen, but there's going to be some changes to minimum pension age, academies and fair deal. That is that's everything which I've just got through as a brief introduction. As I said, I set this up as a Q&A, so I may have answered questions you had in this bit, but happy to take questions or encourage you to ask anything you're not sure about. I'll do our best to answer them. If we can't, we'll go away and come back to you.
I was just thinking, Andy, maybe to just explain the difference between the APC and the QAPAs, what the difference is.
So the QAPAs replaces some of what was covered by buying an APC in the past. These are, in all cases, these are for new cases which started after April. For any old things before that, the old provisions still apply. There's a calculator on websites. So for buying the APC, there's additional pension contributions for lost pension. There aren't many scenarios that really applies for anymore, but it's listed on our website. It said it is worked out differently. Not quite sure why the government introduced two different ways of providing a lost pension, but they have, so they are there. But yeah, as Pella said, one's based on the contributions that somebody actually paid, and the other one's based on a kind of like notional bit of it. But there's more details on the website. I'm deliberately not trying to go into lots of detail now because some of this is a little bit complicated, and I think it's probably, so I just wanted to give you an overview and direct you to where you can find it, because I think it's probably one of those things that, you know, you want to look up when it happens, as and when it happens, because you might not have a case right now, but you might do in 3 or 4 months. So if you know where it is and where you can find the information, you can see. And if you don't, and other things to say really is, like, if you do go onto our website and you don't think our page really answers it, or you're not clear what the answer is, do please just contact us and let us know, and we can give our opinion. We'll also adjust the pages on our website if it's not as clear as it could be. So if there's a scenario which you haven't really covered, or it's a little bit ambiguous, we'll just adjust the web page. So we are very keen that those resources are there available to help you do this if possible. Just one final point on forms. We haven't really changed the forms as such because it's not really introducing any new fields as such. It's just more that because we already have figures for care pay, etc. So those are just something you need to add on. If somebody did decide to take out a QAPA, rather, we haven't designed a separate form to that. We just suggest that you email us and we can sort it out from there, really. We'll look at that at some point about whether we do need a separate form for it, but we're trying to avoid adding additional forms. It wasn't really completely necessary. As I said, I don't anticipate there will be many the QAPAs because I don't think it'll come up very often, but if that assumption proves to be wrong, then we'll look at it again. Please do contact us, particularly if we're happy to take questions over email. Thank you very much, everybody.